This show is intended for all audiences, but some content may not be suitable for all listeners. Listener caution is advised.
You're listening to The Quest, Advancing the Art of Role-Playing, the show where we talk about role-playing in all of its forms, from tabletop to LARP and even cosplay. This is where we offer tips and tricks to role-players, new and old, hero or GM, and where we share our passion for role-playing and collaborative storytelling with you. The Quest is a proud member of the Dancing Giraffe Productions Network. You can learn more about Dancing Giraffe Productions at dancing.giraffe.net, and is brought to you in part by Geek Fan Expo, uniting geeks September 5th, 6th, and 7th, 2014 at the Doubletree Hotel in Dearborn, Michigan. You can find GFX on the web at www.geekfanexpo.com or on Facebook and Twitter at GeekFanExpo. Additional funding for the show is provided by MI Techmedic, that's mitechmedic.com. Brown Coat Convention Photography on Facebook at Brown Coat Photography and on Twitter at Brown Coat Photo, and by the support of listeners like you. You can follow me, your host, on Twitter and Facebook at IRNerdivore, or you can email the show at thequest@dancinggiraffe.net. And now, thank you for joining us on The Quest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of The Quest, season 1. Today's episode, we're going to be talking about conflict that changes characters and how conflict can change characters. I am joined today by Evelyn and Laura.
Hi. Hi.
And we're going to do the news again today. I know we missed it last episode, and I know this episode's coming out a little later than we would like, but holidays and schedules and whatnot, sometimes things get a little conflicted. So we're going to have somebody new to the news today. Evelyn is going to cover it for you. So here we go with the news.
From escapistmagazine.com, Minecraft has been a work in progress for its entire existence. In the current version, the many different terrain biomes are often placed awkwardly next to each other, with deserts randomly juxtaposed against Arctic tundra. Meanwhile, massive oceans interrupt the typical brick-breaking gameplay and force players to either avoid them or slowly sail through. In a blog update, lead developer Jens Bergensten mentioned 3 specific issues he intends to address: oceans being too large, uneven biome placement, and lack of variation. To fix that, Mojang's overhauling the code that generates the maps. Future Minecraft worlds should have far less oceans, logical biome placement, and alternate configurations of those biomes for variety. Along with the new terrain maps, players can also expect new biomes, new rare and uncommon biome variations, and new flowers and trees.
Nice.
Ooh, flowers and trees.
Yeah.
I know Jesse is excited about this.
Yeah, as the only person currently sitting here who plays Minecraft at all, I'm kind of looking forward to it. I haven't played Minecraft in a while, and I did have a quote legitimate copy for a while, and then I bought an actual legitimate copy, and I do enjoy playing the game. So SWTOR's taken its place recently, though.
From Geek.com, few game franchises have been as consistently loved over the years as Doom. Even with years in between installments, fans still can't wait to get their paws on the new Doom game. In typical fashion, Doom 4 has been in development for a very, very long time. But in the meantime, you can tide yourself over with these nifty pewter miniatures of all of your favorite Doom monsters. The first run is already gone, but you can sign up for email notifications. Even at $200 per set, these miniatures are hot. There are 15 miniatures, including all the classics: the Cyber Demon, Archvile, Hell Knight, our anonymous protagonist, and all the rest. These miniatures are recastings of a set originally sold by Reaper Miniatures in the late 90s. They're currently being sold by Bethesda.
Yeah, I like Doom, but I'm not really sure this stuff is relevant anymore. I don't know how people really care about Doom anymore.
I've never really gotten into Doom before.
Yeah,
So.
I remember playing Doom before, way back when the Pentium 1 first came out, or actually it was a couple months before the Pentium 1 came out, because Jamie's dad had a computer with Pentium 1 on it.
Nice.
And that was back in the day when you thought that 512 megs of RAM were going to keep you sated for life, you know?
Yeah.
Pretty sure my watch has more than that now.
Right. Even if they are relevant, $200 for 15 miniatures seems incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might pay that for miniatures that were, cast of titanium or something, but
Yeah.
pewter minis, it's not.
Diamond.
I wouldn't do that. especially the Doom monsters. I mean, what are you going to do with them? They're just minis that, I mean,
Right,
unless
yeah.
you're playing a tabletop game with them, you're not going to use these things.
Right.
They're pretty freaking cute, though.
Yeah, they were pretty cute.
If they were more 8-bit, I might do it.
Yeah.
From GameSkinny.com, Final Fantasy XIV: Realm Reborn set for release on August 27th, so already released, gentlemen and ladies, has received quite a few inquiries from players in the MMORPG community about the possibility of marriage. Same-sex marriage in particular is causing quite the stir. Recent developments within the LGBTQ alphabet soup community and their fight for marriage equality, such as the repeal of Prop 8 in DOMA, have definitely softened the taboo for some of these issues to be discussed within certain industries, and in this case, the gaming industry. The folks on the development team, when asked about marriage in the game, stated, "As for same-sex marriage, this is an extremely controversial topic that has been under discussion in the MMO world for the past few years. First, we would like to start out with opposite-sex marriage, and then consider the feedback from our players." The author of the original article says, "Although I do respect them for at least considering the idea of equality, I can't help but think of the other games already out there that allow for same-sex relations. Mass Effect 3 and Fable 3, for example, did just fine despite having this option."
Do you think that's kind of a cop-out answer?
It is, but it's also an MMO. And what was the point of marriage in an MMO? You could just say you're married. What benefit is there going to be?
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Unless there's some kind of game mechanical effect. If you want to role play you're married and you're same sex, who cares?
Right. Who's going to stop you?
Who's going to stop you? And if there is a mechanical effect, then the mechanical effect should apply to anybody that wants to have the quote marriage effect. And really, I can get why they might not want to do that, but I can't think of anything you would do in an MMO that would give you an effect for being married in game. Unless they're talking about NPCs, if it's a PC NPC interaction, but you could do it. You want to go back ways back. Fallout 2 had same-sex relations that you could have. I mean, they were not marriage, quote unquote. It was most assuredly a torrid affair. And I played my character several times in Fallout 2 where I had sex with everybody. I didn't care.
Even The Sims. In The Sims, you can get into relationships with same sex.
Right. And I don't know. I don't understand the stigma anymore. Maybe I've never really understood the stigma for the gay community. And I know that they have it. I know that it's there, but it's not something that's I've ever really seen. And all of the friends that I have that are LGBTQ, B, C, R, NMOL, LOP, it's never really been. It's just such an open place. We live in a really progressive area in the country too.
I was gonna say where we live, like near Ann Arbor and everything, it's not necessarily like this everywhere.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe I don't understand it, and it's something that maybe somebody can call in and leave a message as to why this is such a big deal.
Right.
Why you would have a problem with that, but
I think for the gaming community, for the LGBTQ gaming community, members of the gaming community, it's kind of a show of good faith and friendship, and acceptance. But on the flip side of that, and maybe it's just because we're in a more open area of the country and I have a more open group of friends, but the gaming community is the one place that I have never seen that hatred and that homophobia.
Yeah. There's I know this is plugging somebody else's convention, but I'm going to do it anyway. There's a convention out west called GamerCon, GAYMER, and they had a Kickstarter. They were looking for, I don't know how much it was. I think it was about 12 or 15,000 for their Kickstarter, and they ended up with just under 95,000, just under 96,000, something like that. And it's basically a video game and gaming convention targeting the LGBT community. And I think it's absolutely fantastic. I was so glad they did it. I really want to get a hold of them for GFX and maybe do a table thing with a table exchange. Although neither one of our conventions are even close to so it's not like our communities really overlap that much. So maybe in a couple of years I can make an excuse and go out there and do that. So. All right, that's all we have for news today. I was going to talk a little bit about the SWTOR 2.3.2 update today, but I was too busy playing around with it, so I didn't write anything. So I will have that if we do another show this weekend, because we are behind an episode. So if we can get that show up, I will do that. If nothing else, I will have that in the next episode. I also want to talk a little bit about the new Star Wars RPG by Fantasy Flight Games. So look forward to that in a very near upcoming episode, as we're all playing it now and getting around to knowing it and realizing.
I'm very much enjoying it.
Yeah, realizing that we played it completely wrong last night. So, All right. So
We did.
we'll get our sting in there. That way we got, an actual closing.
Yay!
I want to give a couple announcements today before we get too carried away with what we're doing. One, the dancinggiraffe.net website now has a Call the Quest widget for Google Voice.
Ooh.
So you can click on that and leave us a message. We will listen to every message. One of us will listen to every message. It will be me. And assuming there isn't too much hate mail, we'll play a couple of them. But feel free to leave us a message, feedback about how the show is doing, things you want to hear talked about, comments that you have about things that we've done in previous episodes that you agree with, don't agree with, whatever you want to leave us, we'll listen, and you might get yourself on the quest. So feel free to do that. We are available on iTunes. I did update the meta tags for iTunes, although I still don't know how it comes out on iTunes because I haven't looked since I updated everything. So search for Dancing Giraffe Productions or IR Nerdivore, and you will see the quest. And the reason it's set up that way is because I will be doing another podcast eventually called IR Nerdivore, and it will be a general geek thing. So I wanted to make sure that it's all going to be done through the same website, and I wanted to be able to make sure it's easy to find through iTunes. So that's why that is. Beyond that, we have two guests today. It's Laura and Evelyn, as opposed to Brandon as well, who is not available today. So we were going to have Josh come back for a visit episode, but we ended up running out of time on Monday, and he had to go back to Ohio. So I'm going to try to get him in on as a Skype call sometime in the near future, because make him learn how to use Skype.
He doesn't know how to use Skype.
Oh no, he does.
Come on.
No, he totally knows.
Okay.
That's. I think that's the only instant messenger I think he's got too. I don't know, but I need to figure out how to use Skype with this machinery. So
Fair enough.
But all right, today's episode is about conflict changes characters, and what that basically means is that personal growth in humans in general comes from challenge, and conflict can be conflict between characters, conflict between enemies. Skill challenges. Really, conflict means just challenge in general. So one of the things that we want to talk about in this, we'll start out small and we'll talk about games within games. Well, I think before we do that, we should specify the couple of types of actual narrative versions of conflict in storytelling. There's man versus wild, man versus man, man versus I don't know what else.
It's man versus nature.
Man versus nature, right? Man versus man.
Nature, man versus man, man versus self.
I think so.
I think maybe you're taking me back to high
That sounds
school.
about right.
Yeah, like
Maybe
95
college.
years ago.
Versus wild is more, you eat a raw fish and drink your own urine.
Right. Oh, and then get a flight back to the hotel.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Unless you're watching Survivor Man, which I recommend
Snuggle
that
with
show.
snuggle with your camera crew that
Right.
are following you around.
Yeah. Les Shroud, by the way. If you quick plug to Canadians. Forget Bear Grylls, watch Les Shroud. He doesn't do it anymore, but you occasionally see a Survivor Man on TV, and it is a way better show.
So much better.
So, anyways, we'll talk about games within games. Some of the things that might come to mind is you're talking about, let's talk about Knights of the Republic video games, which these two have never played. I don't think you've never played, have you? Okay, so
Nope.
I know Laura has never played it, but there's games called Pazak, which is a game you play it in order to get side quests and stuff. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about games within games. So let's say you're playing a tabletop RPG, say Legend of the Five Rings, and your character is challenged to a game of Go by someone else. What are the implications to change your character's role-playing style and the method of dealing with this type of in-game game?
I don't feel a lot of implications in playing Go.
Well, in Legend of the Five Rings, Go is one of those games that it is a political game. You play it to size up your opponent. Now, if you ever played chess with anybody? Have you played chess?
No.
Yeah, but more for fun because I suck at chess.
Right.
That's my problem, is that I am horrible at strategy and I'm horrible at political implications. So it comes up a lot in L5R, but I usually try to avoid it because I don't.
Well, think about it this way. If you're looking at, you're playing a board game with somebody or you're playing chess with somebody, you can learn a lot about the way somebody thinks and the way that they're going to do, and you can play it that way. Or poker. They always say play the person, bluffing and that kind of thing.
I get that in theory.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I guess
I
get it better.
understand that you can do that. I'm just not capable of doing that.
I get it better when you put it in terms of cards because I play a lot of euchre.
Sure. Yeah,
And-
euchre. Yeah. So it's a lot of playing the person across from you. So you've got that intimate, unspoken conflict with somebody. You're trying to beat them at something, and we do it. We play a lot of board games. Recently, we played Life the other day, which I got so trounced. I was in such a bad mood when I started that game, anyways, and then I got so trounced that I was not happy.
I always hated that game.
Oh, I love
I
Life.
Bored
like
the
that
crap out of
game.
me.
I don't like the new versions. I don't like the lawsuits thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So,
annoying.
yeah, I
It
don't
comes
like
up
it.
too much.
It comes up too much.
I mean, I guess that's accurate to life, but
I don't know. I've only been sued once in my whole life, and it was a frivolous lawsuit.
no,
so.
that's true.
I've never been sued.
Yeah. Well, work in the medical field longer, and you'll get sued. That's how I got sued. I got sued for my partner actually did something, or got accused of doing something stupid, but we were both exonerated. So anyway, you get that type of conflict where it's much more unspoken as opposed to outward conflict, like drawing a lightsaber and attacking the guy across from you.
Right.
But it can still have very, very dramatic effects on your character, and it's much less. I mean, generally speaking, in tabletop RPGs, you don't go through and do these games. You don't
Right.
play them unless there's something relevant happening. So it's one of those things that, I mean, have you guys ever been a part of them? And what kind of role playing experiences have you guys had that have come from these sort of in-game games? Even if they're not necessarily board games, maybe it's I know every time I run L5R, not every time, but a lot of times I run L5R, we never start in a cantina or in an inn. We start with tournaments.
Yeah.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. I remember the in one of the L5R games, we started with it was the tournament for like the Emerald Champion or something
The
like
Jade
that,
Championship.
or the Jade Championship. That's what it was. And
Yeah,
that's always difficult because if you're good at something, but your character's not good at something, or vice versa, it's like it's a challenge to balance like how much is the role and how much is you.
Right. And there can definitely be some challenges on that end. The Jade Championship is a pre-made beginning adventure that I don't know if it's published in 4th edition or not, but I know it's published in 3rd, I think, and maybe 1st. I don't know. You can download it online somewhere.
The only games within games that I can think of offhand that I've been involved in have been in the LARP setting.
Sure.
We play a lot of Dragon Poker. Well, you play a lot of Dragon Poker.
Yeah, I used to play a lot of Dragon Poker.
I spend a lot of time watching Dragon Poker and trying to understand what the hell's going on.
Right.
And then we had our various tournaments, usually for court, sometimes just for fun. I participated in a bardic tournament as my gypsy character.
Right. Those can be fun. I do like gypsies. I do not gypsies. I don't like gypsies at all. Not in game anyway. The real ones, we're not gonna get into that. I do like the movie Snatch though. Anyway, yeah, I'm distracted this morning, this evening. Whatever. I don't even know what time of day it is anymore. So, yeah, Dragon Poker is poker with a euchre deck and one wild card. It's a euchre deck plus one joker that's all wild.
Craziness.
It's not
It is a little crazy.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It's a fun game to play until you realize that characters like me who have so much money, I just bet you off the table and I win. So, and there's only about 10 people who play the game, so it's once you learn those players, it's really pretty easy to win. Which actually plays nicely into this topic. It's I play against Gnip a lot, and Fred, who plays Gnip, is an adamant player. He plays pretty much every event, if he can. But he's not particularly good at it. And it's because I don't think Fred has ever mastered the way of the ability to conflict, to understand the way someone thinks in a conflict. And I could be mistaken. Maybe he's not. Maybe Gnip is just not good at it, and Fred is just losing money intentionally, which I have done. So it's possible he's doing it. But anyway, you can learn a lot about the person across from you, be it NPC, PC, or whatever, through these in-game conflicts, and you can have that little bit of growth that you need to understand the situation a little better. I've run games of L5R where people have sat down across the table from a Bayushi, for example, Bayushi Kachiko, which I've never used, but those of you who know L5R will know who I'm talking about, and that's a little fan service. So anyway, Bayushi Kachiko, you sit down across from her and have a game with her, and the things that happen in the game that she's playing with you, she moves a token here, and you get to you get to surround it. You get to take that token button over. It leaves an opening over here. You can learn. You can get a lot of subtleties in these types of games. So if you're a GM running something and you want to get a lot of subtle hints across, or you want to get some mysterious information out to the players, like a hint here or there, and hope they get it. Make sure you get the right players. Laura's not a good one for that. Yeah, subtlety is not.
No.
So, but you can get a lot of subtlety into a game in these types of things, and you can create a lot of conflict as far as enhancing the mistrust between characters. So that's what we meant by games within games. Mm-hmm. That's what I meant anyway. I kind of wanted to start with games within games because it's a hard one to do. It gets us flowing.
Thinking.
Yeah.
So the next thing I want to talk about is narrative combat. We've discussed it before. I've discussed it before. There are three kinds of game storytelling styles. There's a mechanical storytelling, there's a narrative storytelling, and there's collaborative storytelling. Generally speaking, when you think of narrative storytelling or narrative combat, you think there are generally no dice. And my thoughts on this one was I wanted to talk about what your guys' opinions on strictly narrative combat are, with no dice rolling, it's all narration between the player and the GM.
That just sounds crazy to me, because I feel like you have to have some kind of element of randomness in order to make it work.
Sure.
Like, how do you know if you succeeded or not? Does the GM decide?
That's generally how it does work, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it depends on kind of the end goal, or the overall end goal of that particular combat. If it's a random kick in the door game, yeah, you want dice.
Yeah.
But if it's this big cinematic cutscene, then I would prefer, honestly, a narrative between the player and the GM, because the GM already knows where this needs to go to further the story, and you're not distracted by, okay, well, I rolled this, and okay, well, it does this and this. Not really a combat scene per se, but our game last night,
right,
where we started the new Edge of the Empire game. Laura and I, our entry scene was my ship coming in through the Sith barricade, getting shot to crap, and coming, just barreling in, barely getting the landing gear down in time, and there was a lot of distraction and detraction from the scene itself in us trying to figure out the die system,
right?
Because the die system is a little weird.
Well, it's definitely new.
Yeah,
I was
it's
gonna
very
say, it's
new.
definitely different too than most.
Yeah.
And if we hadn't had that die system, it was very cinematic and dramatic. Even with breaking to figure out the dice, I can't even imagine how amazing and immersive that scene would have been without the dice.
Right. Now, I personally prefer dice just because I like the element of randomness. I as a GM don't want to have to dictate to the players what their story is. I'm a collaborative storyteller. So what I want the players to be able to, I want to give you a story, a scenario, I want you to give me feedback, and then I want to see what happens with that. I want the players to realize that their landing gear isn't working, go to the back of the ship and not be able to fix it right away. Maybe take another round or two to fix it, and just have to deal with the conflict of not being able to fix it. It helps me personally be able to add additional tension to a scene, assuming the players failed. If the players succeeded everything, then, I might as well be watching Star Trek, which I do love. Don't get me wrong. I love Star Trek. I'm not even going to say I prefer it over Star Wars because I don't want to get into that debate yet. That's another episode entirely. But
That's an episode where we do it live and you bring in callers. That would be really entertaining.
Yeah, if I could. I'm going to try it with IR Nerdivore, but it's going to be, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. But anyways, the notion of having the dice, to me, it's almost necessary. Now, one of the things I really like about the new Star Wars game, the Edge of the Empire book set. Now, granted, we as a group have the Edge of the Empire book, but we are not playing an Edge of the Empire game. I am playing an Old Republic game using the Edge of the Empire rules and making up a lot of the Force stuff, since the Force is not really in there. And we have a lot of stuff that's third party, people who've done the beta and stuff like that. And I've done a bit of the beta, and we did the beginning game and stuff like that. But I'm a D6 Star Wars West End Games die-hard fan. Like, I just bought 2 books last week for this game.
You even contemplated buying West End Games at one point, didn't
I
you?
actually am still contemplating buying West End Games.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that I intend Dancing Giraffe to do at some point when I have the money. I have Eric Gibson's email address. If Eric, if you ever listen to this episode or any episode that I'm in, you call me. We talk. We'll make it's been my dream since I was about 15 or 16 years old to own West End Games, and I will make it a reality. Even if the company's out of business and I have to reform it myself, I will do it. Hopefully in the next few years. But anyways, I am a huge Star Wars fan. I'm a huge role-playing game fan. The first role-playing game I played was D&D. The second role-playing game I ever played, and the first one I ever ran, was Star Wars. The old blue book with Darth Vader on the cover. I still have my first 3 books that I ever bought. I bought them in a magic shop in Traverse City with quarters. But to me, the cinematic storytelling style of the Star Wars universe and the cinematic nature of the D6 system, while I think somewhat less cinematic than the new system, just because of the potential for speed in the new system and the number of dice you could end up rolling. Right. I don't like the idea that the new Edge of the Empire game doesn't include the ability for me to tell any story I want in any setting that I want. It's intriguing the way they're doing it. I wanted something more. I am turning the game they made for us into something more.
Well, they're working on it. You got to give them time.
Yeah, they're still doing 3. They're doing 3 books. They're doing the Edge of the Empire book. The beta for the second book is about to come out, which is Star Wars Age of Rebellion, which will take place, I believe, just after the Battle of Yavin, which is where they blew up the first Death Star. And it's going to take place from that until just after the second Death Star is destroyed, a year or 2 after, I think they said. And then the third book will be The Force and Destiny, which is going to deal with the Jedi and stuff like that, which I don't mind that. But they're basically giving us a setting to play in. Mm-hmm. And I liked that for 7th Sea. I liked that for L5R, but the Star Wars universe is so big and so expansive, and it isn't their property. I don't even think it really. I don't personally think of it as even Lucasfilm property or Disney property anymore. Although, don't sue me, Disney. I think of it more as there's so much there, and there's 35 or 40, almost 40 years of Star Wars in the world. It is the fans' property by and large. I mean, we don't get to decide everything that happens with it, but we get to be part of it, and it's that much. So I really wanted a book for Star Wars that would be something that I could tell any story I wanted. I like the Edge of the Empire book. I like the setting they've incorporated for Edge of the Empire, but it doesn't fit the game I had in mind to run. So we are doing something beyond the normal. So yes, she did say Sith. There are Sith. I do have a Jedi in my campaign who is an actual Jedi. We've created it. Well, we didn't create. I found a thing that is a class, a career path. For those of you who know how to play the game, there's a career path with specializations that are Jedi. They don't exist in the real book. I will contemplate putting a link to them in the show notes so that people can find them. I was going to do more of this in the actual episode where we talk about this game. So this is a preview of that. But anyways, the notion that the dice themselves slow down the game, I definitely understand. It's one of the things I really like about the World of Darkness system is it's a very fast system. Yeah. I think the more we play this Edge of the Empire system, the faster it will be. The reason I was running the story as cinematic as I was yesterday was because I wanted good storytelling to get people immersed into the idea of what's going on. I wanted to set up the initial storyline, which is where you and the other group, which is a Republic soldier and his small squad and a Jedi and his master are on a planet that has just been invaded by the Sith. This is about 10 years after the setting of the Old Republic game, with a new Sith group that has taken over and blah, blah, blah. Anyway, the two smugglers, which is Laura and Evelyn, have been hired by the Republic to go and to smuggle out the Jedi and his group and get them out of the planet and get them off the planet, and along with some ambassadors and whatnot. I had to get them all on the same planet together, so they get shot down. They're on the planet now. They have to go find parts to repair their ship, and in the meantime, they also have to deal with this fledgling rebellion that's on this planet that is being led by this Jedi Master who was trapped there, and the government in exile and whatnot. So I wanted to have the storytelling elements of the quick play, the cinematics to get the ball rolling, but I also wanted to have just enough dice rolling that we can get used to the system, a little bit used to the system. I think that as we get better at this, we'll be able to do it a lot faster, and we can have a lot more cinematic play.
Yeah, once you learn what symbols are what and what cancels what, it's very akin to pretty much any other D10 system. You roll your dice pool versus the GM's dice pool or your opponent's dice pool. Oh, okay, these cancel this cancels this.
Right.
Boom, I got it.
Yeah, it's similar in I do like the fact that the players roll all the dice. Almost all the dice. I mean, the GM can roll too, but when you roll your difficulty dice along with it. So it's interesting. I think it puts more. I think it makes it makes it feel like there's more control in the player's hands. I like that. So, but I think as far as the narrative style of storytelling goes, you can do really good stories, but I think you limit yourself on the amount of conflict that you can have and the amount of additional challenges. There's a feat or something similar to it in, I think, the Serenity game called Things Just Don't Go Right, or Things Don't Go Smooth.
Yeah.
Something like that. And to me, that statement of things don't go smooth is what makes role-playing a lot of fun. And and if you're the storyteller telling everything that everything's going to happen before it happens, then you're not. What's the point? I mean, why don't write a novel at that point?
Right. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. It's the reason you write up a character and you have stats and everything is so that you can use them. And if all that's going to happen is what the GM wants to happen, then why even have a character,
Really, at that point, you're just in a play.
Right. Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I'm not discounting the fact that in narrative storytelling styles of games, the players have input. Because by all means, you're going to come up with something to change the story that I'm not going to think of, but it's still, there's no chance of failure unless the GM wants it to fail. And it just feels to me, it's just too controlling. There's a few games out there that are diceless role-playing games, which I'm not going to get into which ones they are, but there's a few out there that are like that. And Fudge is very close to a diceless system. The Dresden Files RPG is a good example of it's much more narrative than most other games like D&D. Obviously, less like D&D than anything else. D&D is definitely not narrative. But I'm not really a fan of the Fudge system because I think it's too much burden on the GM to tell the story and not enough burden on the players. I'm trying to incorporate into different games a way personally to get the players to have more involvement in telling the story. The drama dice are a good way to do it in 7th Sea. I think once I get you guys used to doing it, the dice, the light side, dark side token things that you get in Edge of the Empire will work for that too.
I do like the idea of, I flip a light side point over and I get to tell what happens with Laura's failure die.
Yeah.
Right. Or at least the small
tragedy
aspect of
die.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good idea. The adventure system for World of Darkness has a really good system for it, which really helps you get into that narrative style of play, but it doesn't necessarily limit because the dice are still there to make sure things happen the way to make sure that things happen at a more random level and that there's a chance for something to not work. I mean, at the end of every Star Trek episode, it's going to be back to the way it was, and while episodic television is fun to watch, I don't think there's enough conflict there for true character growth, unless you have outstanding players or outstanding actors like Jonathan Frakes and Patrick Stewart. And so right along with narrative combat is actual hard combat. Combat can obviously have dramatic effects on your character. You can die.
Yeah.
But what are some of the other types of dramatic effects or just effects that combat can have on the role playability and future decisions that your character makes?
Well, I mean, you can, other than dying, you can get injured, and most of the time you just take damage or whatever, but if you take like a significant amount of damage from one attack, you could actually role play it as a wound to a specific area, or something like that, and you could then maybe have lasting effects or a scar or something
Sure.
like that.
Not something I generally do in my games, although it's something I wanted to do more of. What do you guys think of permanent wounds and maimings and limb loss and that kind of thing in combat, coming from combat?
I think they can make it more interesting and maybe a little more realistic.
Yeah, and they kind of force you to take your character in a more lifelike direction.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It also makes you be a little more aware of how much damage you're taking.
Yeah.
It makes it less abstract.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think in thinking about the combat and the effect it can have in your character, I'm running through all of my tabletop characters, and there's just nothing coming. The only thing that comes is my LARP character. And I think incorporating things that you would still have to role play in later sessions, like scars and whatnot, could help your player with immersion a little bit. I have trouble personally as a player immersing in a role play or in a tabletop, because there is a lot of distracty talk. There's instead of, well, I come up to you and I say blah, blah, blah. We do a lot of that instead of just looking at you and saying, hey, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. That's something we're trying to get past in the game
Yeah,
too. We didn't used to
yeah.
have, it wasn't that bad when we were younger.
No, I think we're old and our
Mm-hmm.
Our minds are
imaginations
wandering.
are, yeah.
Well, it's saturated by years of television and video games.
That
and smartphones.
Yeah.
Smartphones are damaging.
Oh yeah, they will.
Yeah.
It's worse than heroin.
And it doesn't help too that, you
Candy Crush crack.
Because you're always distracted by something. Ever since I've gotten a smartphone, I feel like I always, if I have 2 minutes of downtime, I'm pulling out my phone and going on Facebook
Not
or
even.
playing
It's
an
the
app, a
AD&D wet
game.
dream.
Yep. I
Yeah.
can't.
AD&D,
horrible.
ADHD wet dream. Yeah.
I can't watch TV without playing a game on my smartphone.
Yeah,
I can if it's a show I haven't watched. Although
I can still watch TV.
I watch repeats of Big Bang Theory while doing other stuff.
Yeah, I do do things while watching TV a lot, but I work a lot on photos and such. Being a photographer, it's
Right.
working on photos
Yeah.
doesn't take a whole lot of brain power, so I usually will watch TV while I'm doing it.
Yeah, I've gotten so accustomed to not having TV readily available. Like the last 10 or 12 years of my life while I was working the road, I didn't really have TV available for 15, 20 hours a day.
Right.
So I got a lot of computer time in. And now when I watch TV, I'm still doing a lot of computer time because I can't get my face off the screen. And unfortunately now I think I've been staring at the screen long enough, I'm going to have to get glasses pretty soon.
Not having a computer right now, I've had to watch Netflix on my phone,
Ooh.
and it's pretty much the only TV I have access to right now.
Yeah,
I have TV, but it's sad, boring, regular TV.
Right.
So that has actually forced me to not play on my phone watching TV because you can't do that.
Right.
Which
Good
has
point.
actually, like, at points, almost literally driven me crazy. I've had to pull my beads out and do something with my hands.
Yeah.
because I just can't sit still and watch TV.
I went about 5 days without a phone a few months ago, and it changed my life.
You find yourself going, well, I when I broke my phone about a month ago, I was without a phone for about 2 days, And I felt naked and vulnerable and like the world was going to explode and there was nothing I could do to save myself. And at one point I stopped and went, "You've only had a phone for like 6 years.
Yeah.
See, I've had
Why
a,
is
Before
this such
that.
a bad
I've had a
thing?"
phone since 1997.
No,
No, 98. I got my phone in 98.
I guess it's been more than 6. Well, it's been a lot longer than I thought. I got my first phone in 2002.
Yeah. I bought
So
mine.
9 years.
I bought mine about 6 months out of high school. I bought my first cell phone, and I've had one on my side pretty much nonstop since 1998. So when I didn't have
That's
a phone,
about the time that I got my first cell phone, but it was like, I mean, you didn't do it. Wasn't. It was before
Yeah, they weren't
smartphones.
smartphones.
Yeah,
it
they were
was-
just.
And I only ever used it for emergencies at first. You know?
Yeah,
You
so
were
yeah, I
really
used
I
to-
was
lucky
not
to
a.
play
I was
Snake.
not a big phone talker. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
huge texter, but I don't like to talk on the phone very much.
Yeah. See, I didn't think I would want one, and then I got one. I didn't think I would use one. I got one. I had, I think, 100 minutes a month, something like that, and no text, because there was no texting really then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Back when texting was 50 cents per text,
Yeah.
incoming or outgoing.
Yeah, it was 15 cents a call, 15 cents a text, ingoing or outgoing. It was terrible, and it was a Sprint phone, so don't ever do that. Anyway, I about 3 months into having a phone, I was consistently going over my minutes and consistently using up more and more time. And now I have unlimited talk, unlimited text, virtually unlimited data, although it's not technically unlimited. I have 12 gigs of data a month on my phone, and I use about 9 of it. I am on my phone constantly. Although
I am
it
too.
also includes my tablet, and my tablet also has that. So, but yeah, I don't even know where this discussion
I was
came
going to
from.
say, I don't even remember what we were talking about.
So,
All
distractions in role playing. Oh wait, no, that was 2 episodes
Wait,
ago.
no, that's the wrong episode.
So, I know we were talking about losing. LARPing. You were talking about
Oh,
the
yeah.
LARPing thing. Now, you said that you can't think of any times in your tabletopping career that you've had to role play ongoing injuries, but you can think of times in LARPing where it's come up. Now, so the question here is, and don't take this the wrong way, do you think that's because either your GM wasn't doing a good enough job in giving you something to role play with, or do you think it was that you didn't do enough to utilize things that could be there, like that you didn't role play the wounds and things like that?
I think probably a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, and then you throw in column fish in there,
Right.
adding in the fact that it's, with the exception of this last month and a half, it's been almost 10 years since my last tabletop session.
Sure.
And I have a really, really bad memory. So digging back to, my first D&D game that I started playing in 2000, I don't remember a lot about that character. I remember little things here and there, but I don't remember specifics. I don't remember change.
Right. Do you think that for both of you, do you think when you were younger as a player that you'd have been able to handle it as well as you could now? Like, I know that I, as a GM, didn't really think about long-term woundings of characters when writing stories. So I didn't think about, well, I've got this L5R character, Mirumoto Alugari, which is Brandon's character. What if I severed a left arm? I mean, it's not his right arm, it's not his primary arm, but he's a dragon, so he does fight 2 weapon. What if I severed his arm? What would that have? What kind of effect would that have on his character? I never thought of that before. I did it in Star Wars. I did cut off limbs in Star Wars, but that's because everything can be replaced with cybernetics in Star Wars.
Right.
There was nothing to
Yeah,
it.
that's true.
I think I would have handled it okay. I luckily was never the player that got uber attached to her character, and if something horrible happened, it was the end of my real life.
I was. I've gotten better, but I was also more creative when I was younger. Working retail kind of kills that.
Yeah.
Kills the soul.
Yeah. Although I still get, now and then, I get a really good character inspiration, and it's all I can think about. Like with the Star Wars character, when I started thinking more about it and stuff and got a really good idea that I really liked, I've been thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
So it's nice to still get those bursts of creativity, because I know it still exists, even though it doesn't come up as often as it
Right.
used to.
It only took Derek 9 months of pestering me to run a Star Wars game, and a failed Pathfinder game. I shouldn't say that. The Pathfinder game did not fail. I was not feeling the Pathfinder game creatively, so I went to Star Wars.
You weren't feeling it because it wasn't yours. You were using a pre-gen
Yeah,
storyline.
I think that's probably true. It's also not really. I'm not really a big fantasy role player. I did that. I had my time with that. I like sci-fi. I mean, I shouldn't say I don't like fantasy. I love the L5R setting, and it's technically fantasy, but it's not. It's not typical
It's not a
European
high
fantasy.
Right. You're not a big high fantasy
Yeah.
fan.
I think too that there's less depth in D&D and Pathfinder games. Like they don't feel like they should have the depth that games like L5R and Star Wars can get.
Yeah, I've never been in a D&D game that has had real substance.
Yeah.
All of my games with substance, all of my favorite characters, with the exception of my first character, which is a D&D character, all of my favorite characters have not been D&D.
Yeah.
And the only reason that first character is one of my favorites is because she was my first character. This was
Right.
my first foray into gaming, and that D&D campaign lasted forever.
Yeah, I was going to say my first character was a D&D character, and I think she is probably one of my favorites. But again, same situation. It was my first character, so she's kind of special, and it was a campaign that we played for a really long time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
My first character was a D&D character called Demetrius. I was a half-elven ranger because that's what you do. But we didn't know the rules. We had
you
no.
do.
Yeah, Jamie. Yeah, that's what you do. Jamie and I had no idea the rules for D&D. We knew there was a D20 involved. We knew what THAC0 was. We couldn't figure it out, but we knew what it was.
I don't think anybody ever actually really. Anybody who says they figured out THAC0 is full of shit.
So that was we had a very narrative style of gaming for D&D, and this was because we didn't know what proficiencies worked and how we didn't really understand proficiencies. We were so excited to start role playing that we didn't really take time to read the rules. We just hey, half elf ranger, I have a bow and a hawk and armor, and there's hobgoblins over there. I hate those things. Let's go kill those things. So that was a lot of fun, and I still have my first character sheet. It's in the box under that over there.
I have all 3 incarnations because we played that game so long that I have the green and white sheet.
Yeah, the green and white.
And then I think I have 2 other printed copies because they just got so old and worn.
Yeah.
got worn out.
Yeah, I don't know. It's your first is always your best.
Yeah. I don't know about my best.
Well, yeah,
But
all right.
It
You'll always remember it with fondness.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I used to lay in the pool dreaming about buying the Star Wars RPG and the stories I was going to tell with it. I still love the Star Wars game. Anyway, we are using up time today. So,
We're reminiscing.
yeah.
Yeah.
So the next step we want to get to, because we still have a couple more topics we want to get to, is another type of conflict in game, which is investigation type games. Now, these are some of the hardest games to run, and most assuredly the hardest ones for players to get a grip on. But they are conflict. The Sherlock Holmes style of gaming can be very conflict driven and can really have a profound effect on the way your character is portrayed in the game. The most investigative games I run, in fact, probably the only investigative game I really run, other than I think I ran some investigation stuff in WOD, New WOD, I should say, to specify for you purists. You wrong purists. You
hurt my soul, sir.
the setting is so much better in first,
No,
but the
I have
system
to
is so much
say-
better in second.
I picked up a copy of Requiem the other day and was immediately drawn in because every chapter has their little quote, and the chapter I flipped open to was the quote was from one of the guards at Jesus' crucifixion.
Sure.
And I was like, oh, I just want to sit down right here and read this entire book.
Yeah.
Middle of Fun for All. I want to do was sit on the floor and read this whole book.
I will admit that I think the classes and stuff, the clans for Vampire the Masquerade are better than Vampire Requiem, but Requiem is a good game. But barring that, the actual World of Darkness book, the blue, thin, hardcover book, it's the World of Darkness book. It is the core rules for the game.
Okay.
Is one of the best RPG books I have ever read. And it's not necessarily that it's that much content, but it's just such a simple system that if you wanted to play a great storytelling system, there is almost nothing better for doing a generic modern day setting for storytelling than the New World system.
World of Darkness and Vampire specifically has always been my absolute favorite system.
Yeah. Not my favorite. L5R is still my favorite, but it's WoD has. I did not like World of Darkness when I first started playing it. I didn't like Vampire when I first started playing it. This was a long time ago. We're talking like 97, long time ago. And I didn't.
You're
I
so
hadn't.
old.
I know. I'm so old. Stupid 34. Anyway, I didn't want to play the game. I didn't have an interest in playing a vampire. It was too emo, and I'm not.
It was before Sparkling.
It was before Sparkling, but it was
Yeah.
basically too sparkly.
That's not a vampire. That's a fae.
Yeah.
Changeling at best.
So, but I basically I didn't have a desire to do it, and then I got into it more and more and more, and I liked it more and more, and I really enjoyed my character Jareth, and a few other characters that I've played in that system. But as a storyteller, getting into telling more modern stories, there was no other system I could use to tell the story I wanted to tell. I don't think, Evan, you weren't part of that game, but Laura, Jesse, Brandon, Derek were part of my more recent 1930s, late 1920s, early 30s.
Is your Chowda game?
My Chowda. Yeah. Well, the game, the idea of the game was set, and this is the investigation type part of the game that I had, so that people don't think we're rambling again. The Laura's character and Brandon's characters started out as detectives in the 1920s or 30s. I think it was 1929 was the year it started, because it was just before the
St. Valentine's Day.
Well, it was just before the Valentine's Day massacre, and right before the stock market crash of 29.
Yeah.
Which was intentional because that was going to be part of the story. Anyway, the notion is that they were supernatural paranormal investigators in the city of Detroit, which is a city that is often overlooked for paranormal and supernatural activity, but it's the jumping off point. The Detroit and Monroe were the jumping off points for the Underground Railroad. It's one of the first parts of the country that were ever settled as far as the westward expansion went. Michigan was the wild frontier of Davy Crockett and Daniel Boone. So it's really a historic area, and it was something that I could utilize. And I use werewolves a lot in the Native American context, like this, the Huron Indians and whatnot. I think that I tend to use that more as the werewolf kind of stuff. And then because it's such an old city, I mean, we're talking Cadillac came ashore in the late 16, early 1700s. I don't know when it was exactly, but
I wasn't there.
yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't there. I would have liked to have entered to watch, and because I think it would be funny to watch Anyway, I want to drive a Cadillac up to him and be like, "Hey, look, it's you." Anyway, so from around that time period or so is when I was having vampires and stuff coming into the game. We were doing a lot of investigations as far as these characters were getting into the world of darkness, as it were. Now, I wasn't using the actual World of Darkness campaign material. I was making it my own. But it gave the conflict of these characters having to figure out what was going on and what these dog bear things were, and well, they didn't know they don't know what werewolves are, Right. So it was a fun investigation. There was a lot of conflict as far as that went in trying to figure things out and what was going on.
Plus Derek's bad gangster accent was pretty awesome.
Yeah, he was.
No, that was a good game though.
It was. I need to finish it.
Yeah, I found that I had a lot of character development throughout the game.
Right.
All of us, I think, really did.
Yeah. Well, the game moved into the eventual storyline, which was very religious connotations, and telling the premise of the game. The main conflict of the game was to have the players discover humanity and what humanity's implication is in the grand order of the divine aspects of life. So, we've been given free will. Free will means that we can defy destiny. So it was a lot of playing through destiny, figuring out what was going on as far as the destiny of these characters was supposed to be, and then letting them have the opportunity to defy that destiny and change the way they were interacted with by the world as a whole, because creatures like vampires don't have free will because they're not mortal anymore. Mortals have free will. And it was a lot of dealing with angels, and we started getting into they found the Spear of Destiny, and they started dealing with some of the proto-Nazis, trying to get a hold of some of the early relics and moving into, and then finally they had the Jim Butcher stole my idea
Yeah.
years after he wrote it. I wrote the story before I read the Butcher books. Anyway, there were the 30 pieces of silver, and in my story, the 30 pieces of silver had been bound to angels or demons or both, because there's really in my storytelling there was no such thing as the fall of Lucifer, because angels don't have free will. Lucifer can't defy God, can't rebel against him. It was God's will that Lucifer do this, so he's just an angel. He's just an antagonist that God has placed there for his own purposes. So that was something that the players had to deal with. And one of the coins was in the hands of the players, and he accepted the gift, quote unquote, of the angel Azraphale, which is not a real angel as far as I know, because I was making stuff up and trying not to be too offensive to our Christian players, of which I will not get into. Anyways, it was interesting when we left the game off and we only stopped playing the game. I don't want people to think that we dropped this game because it was boring or something. We dropped this game because one of our players had a baby.
Yeah.
And we have not had time to get back to it. So he has not had time to get back to it. He did not have the baby. His wife had the baby. He has not had time to get back to the game. Although
because he's been busy being studied by scientists.
Right. Although Kristen played for a little while too, so she did have the baby. So,
Yeah. There.
so I wasn't wrong.
But that is not the only investigative game that you run.
No, but that was
you
the
do it
world.
all the freaking time in L5R and make me want to punch you in the face because you can't actually investigate anything. Because
Right, which is why I love it.
That's not what Samurai do.
You can't root through the body.
And yet you have to have the investigation skill
Right.
in the game.
Right. What I was trying to go with that before I got on a wild tangent about it is that, yes, New World of Darkness is one of the only other systems I run it in. Legend of the Five Rings is the game that I run the most investigations in by far, because combat is so dangerous in Legend of the Five Rings that you don't have a lot of choice but to run investigative games or political type games, because the other option is you play D&D and you die every fifth game. But yeah, I know there's a lot of restrictions when playing The Legend of the Five Rings as an investigative game. You can't. One, there's no forensics.
Right.
So stop thinking like CSI.
Right.
Two,
But
you can't touch the bodies.
Well, yeah,
There's-
and it doesn't seem like you are. I have a hard time grasping the L5R
Mentality.
culture.
Sure.
Yeah, the fictional culture, the Eastern, the what is it,
Asian-
feudal Japan sort of
more or less
time
yeah.
frame.
Mhm.
I have a hard time grasping that way of thinking.
Sure. It is difficult for Western people to think like ancient Eastern
Right.
cultures.
Right.
It's difficult for Western people to think like modern ancient cultures. I mean,
The modern ancient cultures.
Modern Asian cultures.
Modern Eastern cultures, you mean? Yeah. Okay.
I meant what I said.
Use your words.
I did. I just used them wrong.
I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful. 100%. No? It's from Horton Hears a Who.
Well, yeah.
Or no, it's from Horton Hatches an Egg. Horton Hatches an Egg.
Yeah. Horton hatches the egg. It's that one.
Yeah.
But
I used to have
the sound effect was what was.
I used to have the record. So when I hear it, I hear the record.
Okay.
Because it was always, I meant what I said and I said what I meant. Boom, boom. And I'll have to see if I can find it one day. I'll play it. I love
It's
it.
funny.
But anyways, yes, it is difficult for modern Western culture, people from modern Western cultures to understand
Yeah.
people from modern Eastern
Because you guys
culture.
keep telling me, I keep wanting to find proof of things, and you guys keep telling me, no, you don't. That's not the way. That's not the way it works. Because if
Yeah.
if a samurai says that that's what happened, then
And that's
you
what happened.
and somebody
That's what
disputes it, then you just duel, and whoever dies was wrong.
Right. You don't necessarily have to die, but
Well, whatever.
you can find proof. Like a lot of the games that I've run, a lot of the investigations I've run, there is proof. There is a way to prove it. But there's also a lot of times where you're not supposed to be able to find the proof because there isn't any real legitimate proof without going into forensics and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
you think back to even 200 years, well, even 120 years ago, 100 years ago or so, when there wasn't fingerprinting and there wasn't blood analysis and there wasn't, that kind of stuff. It was you pieced together a logical story. You told the story and you were right or you were wrong.
Yeah.
And you had to live with that fact. And that was something that's something about the Legend of the Five Rings storytelling I like, because that adds the personal conflict of having to live with the fact that you might be wrong.
Yeah. That's my hang up is if I say something happened and I duel over it and I'm right and that this happened and then you find out later that that's not what happened, it's like my brain wants to explode. It's like, how do I deal with that?
Right, but that's exactly it. How do you deal with that? What is your character's response to? And it's an aspect that we don't get to play very often in L5R because people are so insistent on getting the truth.
Right.
But I've done it where players have gone through and they found this person is a Mahu caster. We know they're a Mahu caster. We think they're a Mahu caster. We have this is what our proof is. They're not even Mahu casters, but this person murdered this lord. We're going to accuse them. We're going to show our evidence to the Lord. The Lord is going to decide, or we're going to decide what happens, and we're going to take action. We're going to execute this person, and then not even like a few gaming sessions later, like maybe 6 months or 8 months of gaming down the road, you find evidence that points to it was actually this guy over here who did it and framed this guy, and then had you kill him because you're his puppet, and now you have to deal with the fact that this guy used you to kill an innocent man, and how does your honor deal with that, and how does your personal code and the Code of Bushido cope with that fact, and do you go kill the guy that did this, even though he maybe outranks you or whatever? And it's the opportunity for deeper role-playing the opportunity for deeper opportunities, the opportunity for deeper role-playing experiences come about from this kind of investigation where you could potentially be wrong.
Maybe I'm just too hung up on the right answer to things.
I think the trouble with that in L5R is the only clear response to "oh crap, I was wrong" is
Seppuku?
seppuku.
It's not, though.
Honorable death.
It's not, though.
There's always an honorable way out.
Yes. Is your GM railroading? There's always an honorable way out. You'll find that meme somewhere on one of the show notes.
Yeah.
But investigation games can have a lot of potential long-term conflict, not necessarily immediate conflict. There's also the notion of moving the goalposts or changing the endpoint goal of an investigation or really any conflict. One of the things that you can do, like there's the notion of moving the goalpost is essentially you can see the end in sight. It's right there. You're about to achieve your victory. Victory conditions have changed. You're no longer trying to stop this guy. You're now trying to uncover this gigantic conspiracy of the Gozoku as a whole, and how far does it go, and so on and so forth. And then, you get your endpoint changed again, where you've moved on into you've narrowed it down to the three-head of the triad of the Gozoku. You're going to go defeat this guy. You're going to bring down the entire Gozoku, and you find out that the Emperor's involved. And the Emperor is intentionally and willingly involved and has set all this up. So now what do you do? And these are the types of investigative conflicts that you can have as far as changing the goalposts and stuff like that. So the question that comes from that, though, is can you guys think of anything that any games you've been in where you have been so close to the end and then realized how wrong you really were, and it's another whole huge step?
I think I have a tendency of just sort of going with the flow, though.
Right.
I don't know. Like,
The
I'm not really
the Occam's
looking
razor of role players.
Yeah, I'm not really looking for the end of a story or anything like that. I don't know. So when that kind of stuff happens, I just kind of see it as part of the story.
Right. I've never really been part of an end of a story.
Yeah, that's the trouble I'm running into is trying to think. I've been involved in so many different games that I'll just kind of dissipate after a while.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the problem with writing contiguous storylines is that sooner or later they stop, and you're left with a cliffhanger that never got resolved.
Aw.
I've written a lot of those. I have been the cause of many of those.
It's like when Fox cancels a show before the end.
Right. Yeah. I hate you, Joss Whedon. I have more reasons to hate Joss Whedon, which we'll get to in another episode. Absolutely.
Oh.
He has said some things about the Star Wars franchise that I am not okay with.
Oh. That would be a fun live show too.
Yeah.
The Jeff hates Joss Whedon
Ugh,
episode.
God.
Everybody call in and
He's
tell
this-
him why he's a horrible geek
He's
for
like an
hating
inch
Joss
away
Whedon.
from being awesome. Right? He's just so close, but he's always just like he sees the direction to go, and he's modern George Lucas. I've got this great idea. I can then fuck it up by doing all the things that I would do. Oh my God. Indiana Jones 4. Yeah, that's a Joss Whedon movie.
See, there are certain things that just don't exist in my world.
I know, right?
I was never heavily invested in the indie movies.
Oh, I love the Indiana Jones movies.
But I heard just so many horrible things.
Oh, it
and
was
you know
the
what?
worst movie ever made.
That's just gonna go in that pile. Buffy season 7, Lost Boys 2, Indiana Jones 4. These things don't exist.
Yeah. Anyways,
I'm
what were we talking about?
I'm watching my computer write the audio almost 2 seconds behind when it's recording.
Oh,
That's weird.
is that
That's
a
a
bad
little
thing?
It might be a bad
It's a
thing.
lot
This
of
show
writing.
might be a waste.
Oh,
So I got an hour and 10 minutes of actually we're at an hour and 20 minutes on here, an hour and 10 on here of just do it over. So
That's really sad because we've had some really good, really random conversations.
I
I,
think-
don't know if we could.
this will pick it up.
We
So
do.
we'll be
I was
fine.
gonna say I think you're probably fine.
That's why we use 2 recorders, folks.
Yeah.
Anyways, that brings us to our last topic for today, which is violence in RPGs even necessary? Do you need to have violent conflict in an RPG to have solid character growth?
I don't think you do.
No, I don't think you do. I think it all depends on the game you're playing.
Yeah, I think it's a part of most RPGs, but I don't think you necessarily have to have it. I've played non-combat characters before, characters who can't fight at all, and have enjoyed playing them. I mean, and were equally valid to the story, and equally playable characters,
Right.
even though I couldn't fight.
But there was conflict in the campaign.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I can't think of a story that I would write that doesn't have doesn't have physical violence and conflict in it like that. I have run story arcs that were non-violent, and I've run obviously individual gaming sessions where there was no conflict. But I can't think of any time that I've ever run a campaign as a whole that didn't come down to violence somewhere.
We started a Ventru campaign. As much as a whole bunch of Ventru in one room is
Always
a
fun.
good idea. We started a Ventru campaign that it was actually really cool, and it was one of the games that I was really upset didn't continue. We ran 2 completely separate player groups on different days, same GM, same world, and we were rival Ventru games. We were set in the 20s.
Was that a Kent game?
Yeah, it was a Kent game.
Yeah.
I think you were.
No, I was part of a game that he did that was in the 20s where it was a group of two different sets of gangsters. I was playing a Nosferatu though, and it was rival gangs in the 20s.
Oh, okay.
One group might have been Ventru, but I was a Nosferatu.
I think you were in the other gang then.
Yeah,
And see, where as far as ours went, there was no violence.
yeah. There was very
But it
little
was
violence
really
in ours.
short-lived.
Yeah, it was unfortunate because I really, really enjoyed that Nosferatu character.
Yeah.
So then why was it short-lived? Does that have something to do with the
Players.
non-violence, or was it completely
I think it was completely unrelated. It was the reliability in players.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I hate the most about gaming is the unreliable players.
Yeah.
We've had so many games that have just fallen to the wayside because
Yeah.
players
Yeah.
bugger off.
And unfortunately, it's a problem I was trying to resolve with the Google Hangouts game, and it is not. Even being able to play from your own home in your own time, don't care how you dress, don't worry about getting up late because you're gonna. As soon as the game is over, you just go right to bed.
Right.
Play in your bed for all I care.
Yeah.
I do.
That's what I do.
And we're still having a hard time with it. Now, last week was an exception because one of our players was at Dragon Con.
Right.
And apparently has gifts for some of us. And I need to go hang out with him to get my gifts.
Gifts.
He actually called right before the show started. I'm actually going to try to get him on for the Game Master storytelling ones that should be coming up fairly soon. But it has been a problem, and I think the vampire game that Kent was running failed by and large because of, I think there was a breakup in one of the groups, like a relationship breakup maybe.
I think there may have been a couple of them there.
Yeah, but there was also the distance to drive. It was 2 groups of I think 5 players. It was gaming twice a week for the GM.
Yep. Well, and the 2 groups was his response to the player unreliability.
Right. But now you've got 10 players.
Right.
So now you've got, 10 people who are potentially unreliable. I'm trying to get down to my next response to the game. My last response was lower the players, then lower the number of players in the group, and then do the online thing. And now it's going to be, I think, lower the number of players again. We're at 4 right now. I think I'm going to drop it to 2 or 3, which is unfortunate because the only people that are reliable are the 2 of you. So Derek was reliable when he can be, but he's got work. So it's
I was going to
unreliable.
say, it's not always because players are like,
No.
screwing around and just being stupid. It's it's like we're adults.
Yes, absolutely.
We have
Unfortunately-
lives and we have jobs,
Right.
and unfortunately, sometimes real life things have to
Right.
take priority over gaming. Sad as it is.
Right, and that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. But the nights when we tell each other, we decide we're going to game, and then we don't start until 9:30. That's unacceptable. That's
Yeah.
you can't start gaming at 9:30 if you're going to end at 11 or 11:30.
Yeah, and it gets frustrating. I mean, and like last night was understandable because we still had to knock out
there was still
a couple of characters.
There was still at least a character and a half to be made.
Right.
But there have been plenty of nights where we've said, shoot, there was one night a few weeks ago where we said, all right, we're going to go game, and we all went to the condo and we watched TV all night.
Right.
And I don't even know
Yeah.
how that happened.
I can tell you how that happened, but I won't do it while we're on recording. But the reliability, the group I have right now, the core group I have right now, which is Evelyn, Laura, Brandon, and Derek, is actually the most stable and reliable group I've ever had, at least that I've had since high school, or roughly high school. So I can't complain too much. The frustration comes in, I know, on a player side, and especially I know for sure from a GM side, is I write these stories and then I can't tell the stories because we don't have the time to tell them in an adequate fashion, and so they end up becoming slightly abridged, or they end up getting breaks in the middle of them and they don't end up very good, and then I'm frustrated because I took all this time to write the story and now it's not being told, so why am I even bothering? I could just write this down and be fine with it. So it's a thing. It happens. So anyways, we did not write a final thought today.
Oh no.
We didn't write anything except for your basic outline, which I was really nervous about because we hardly did any prep outside of, okay, this is my outline.
I did a lot of prep.
Okay, you.
I just don't write it down.
I didn't do shit.
Yeah. I do.
Yeah.
I have an advantage though because I wrote every episode already.
Yeah.
So I already know what every episode is going to be about and what I thought about when I wrote them.
I kind of looked at this and went, I don't have anything to talk about.
Yeah. You may have noticed that I've changed the way that I'm doing the show a little bit. In that
It's more freeform.
I'm asking more questions to you guys and having you answer them. So that's a new thing. Ooh. It's not really new. It's what I originally had intended to do with the show. That's why I'm the host and you guys are the guests. For those of you who are so So this is going to be a long episode, which makes up for the really short episode we had for the distractions episode.
There you go.
Which was longer than I thought. It came out to like 43 minutes or 48 minutes.
Yeah,
or
with the
something.
intro and the outro. But the intro is like a minute
Still.
and 2 seconds long. It's a crazy long intro. It's way too long. I'm going to shorten it up for season 2. I'm not going to have as much of the voiceover stuff with all the GFX stuff. I'll have that sporadically done throughout the show. Oh, we also forgot to thank, I guess we'll thank him now, Silky Smooth for doing the news today.
Yay.
For sponsoring the news. Where was I going to go with this?
Final thought that we don't
Right, a
have.
final thought we don't have. So I'm going to make it up as we go. The final thought for today is conflict is obviously something that is going to change your character. In order for your character to grow, you must have something to challenge you. Growth doesn't come through stagnation. Yeah, I think that's all I got for that. That's pretty good, though. That's pretty good for making it
Pretty good
up.
for off the cuff. Yep.
And I want to end the show now, but my screensaver came on, and I can't get to my... So, all right. With that, I want to thank our sponsors, Silky Smooth, and that spiel from the earlier episodes. So you can find them at...
Selkiesmooth.com, SelkiesmoothE.com.
All right. And My Tech Medic, M-I Tech Medic. It's MITECHMEDIC.com. And don't forget to check out Geek Fan Expo, which will be in just under a year now, or within a year now. In 2014 in Dearborn, Michigan. You can check out Geek Fan Expo, GFX, Geek Fan Expo, on the web at geekfanexpo.com. Tickets are on sale now. There is a discount on tickets if you pre-order now. We are working on getting some table exchanges where you guys can come see us at some shows. And you can meet at least me and possibly Laura and maybe some people who have not met on the show yet. We have confirmed, and I will put this out now, that Geek Fan Expo will have the Gen Con Gaming Library at our show. It's 390 some odd square feet or more of gaming. So they're going to be there.
Awesome.
It's going to be, they won't be
It's gonna be
24
crazy.
hours. Yeah, it's going to be crazy. They won't be 24 hours, but they will have their own hallway. So with their own rooms and everything else. Also, in addition to that, we will have Dead State Pavilion, which is the Midwest's premier video gaming group. If you are familiar at all with Youmacon Battle Opera or the Youmacon Gaming Rooms, Highland Heydays, what other shows have done? Fanfare, Anime Milwaukee, and a few other ones.
Chris puts on the best video gaming room for
By far,
conventions
I mean,
ever,
yeah,
anywhere.
easily the best. And the show he put on for Youmacon Battle Opera last year, along with Foxfire, I think is the name of the group that he was with there.
Epic.
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 Professional gamers brought in everything. I don't know how much of that's going to really happen at our show, at the GFX show, but Chris never ever disappoints.
Yeah.
So look forward to that. I can't express enough that people should, I think this is going to be a very fun convention. Get in early because the small conventions, as they grow, you want to be on that ground floor. It just makes it so much more fun and so much more your convention. Anyways. So be sure to check out GFX, Geek Fan Expo, on the web at geekfanexpo.com. Again, you can find our show, The Quest, on DancingGiraffe.net. We're also available on iTunes. Search for Dancing Giraffe Productions, The Quest, or IR Nerdivore, and see if you can find it. Be sure to leave comments on iTunes. That's how our rankings in iTunes go up, so that we're easier to find. If you don't have iTunes, I hate to say it, you're going to have to download iTunes and do it. I personally don't like iTunes. I don't really use iTunes other than when I upload the show.
Can iTunes kick you off for that?
No. Probably. It's a Steve Jobs thing.
Love Mac.
We love iTunes.
Don't get me wrong. It's not that I don't. It's not that I dislike Macintosh or anything like that. I just think that iTunes is a waste of time. And I don't have a working iPod anymore, so I use Google. I have converted to the Church of Google.
Yeah.
And so they get my money, what little of it they ask for. Anyway, that's our show for today. Be sure to click and call into our show and leave messages. You can also send us emails at thequest@dancinggiraffe.net. You can find me, your host, on Facebook and Twitter at IR Nerdivore. have no problem leaving comments there. Like the page, leave messages. I will get to them. I always do. So we would like to start doing a section called listener feedback, where we will read your emails or whatnot or tweets or whatever on the show, and we'll respond to them. So anyway, that's it for me tonight. Do you guys have anything else?
Nope.
Nope.
All right, I've rambled long enough. So long. You've been listening to The Quest. I'm your host, Jeff Harvey, and you can follow me on Twitter at IRNerdivore. Don't forget about our friends at www.geekfanexpo.com, and for all of our friends here in the studio and all of our guests, we want to say so long and thanks for all the fish.
Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go. Baby, please don't go back to New Orleans. You know it hurts me so. Baby, I'm way down here. You know I'm way down here. Baby, I'm way down here in a rolling fog. Baby, please don't go.